What's up, everybody? Ryan Michael Ballo here to talk about nootropics and why I don't think they're cheating. To answer the question of are nootropics or are smart drugs cheating, I want to, by the way, sorry about my whole mic system here, my whole messy setup here. I got iOS headphones and a mic system here all around my tie. It's kind of hard. I'm kind of limited when I'm wearing a dress shirt and a tie where to put this stuff. But I would like to talk about some of this stuff from a few perspectives to sort of just give onlookers a different perspective, people that are against nootropics or think that it's cheating, and then also to validate the thinking of people that are for nootropics and don't think that it's cheating. And I'll summarize it thus. I use nootropics at least partially to gain and maintain control of my brain as a result of a state of hypervigilancy that comes from 15 months in combat in Iraq in 06-08 with the United States Army. I also take nootropics from a neuroscientific perspective because I got very interested in neuroscience from a very young age after I got out of the Army in 2008. Thinking about it from the perspective of facilitating better performance and communication among neurons, and also from a an anti-neurodegenerative perspective. I think it's a good idea. And then I'm also an entrepreneur, and using nootropics, there's no question that it's helped me to build my businesses faster, and with more efficacy. So I'll run through each one of those things individually and kind of just go a little in depth about those topics. I started, the first thing I think I should make clear is that though I'm a little biased, and I have a company that sells nootropics, Surrogate Labs, and we sell the nootropic cortex that I made. I think you should think about that for sure in my explanation here, whether or not to think what I'm saying is valid. But it should also be noted that before I started that company, before I even fathomed starting a company about nootropics or selling nootropics, I was experimenting with smart drugs, and prior to that, I was reading books about the neuroscience behind good brain performance, and that was my primary interest before I even thought of creating a company that sold nootropics. I started meditating at 25 years old, and that was to try to curve a little of that hypervigilancy. I was always this heightened state of being conscious of all these little sectors of reality that take place, at a sort of millisecond rate. Because I was a gunner in Iraq. I was part of a specialty scout platoon in the 1st Battalion, 8th Cavalry Regiment, United States Army, 2nd Brigade Combat Team, 1st Cavalry Division, and I was in Iraq from 06 to 08 for 15 months during the surge of 07. And I was a Cav Scout, and we were like a specialty platoon because we had 5 snipers attached to our platoon. Those are 11 Bravos. We were led by Rangers. Our PL and our platoon sergeant were Rangers, and so we were a pretty high-speed platoon. And we did a lot of interesting stuff. And coming out of that experience, being in Iraq, fighting in the war for 15 months, my brain was different, totally different. And I couldn't relax. I would just see everything. And sometimes I don't want to see everything. Sometimes I just want to relax. And so I started meditating at 25, thinking hey, maybe this will help. And it did. I sat for 2-3 weeks. I'd meditate for 45 minutes a night, long time, until I got into this profound states. I would clear my brain. I'd be so clear by the time 45 minutes hit that I'd sit there for an extra 10 minutes and just enjoy this state that I was in, where I didn't have any concerns. I wasn't worried. I wasn't thinking about anything. I was able to deliberately feel good if I wanted to. It's I felt like my creativity was enhanced. I just felt great. And I noticed that after doing that, in that time period, I had all these residual effects, all these beneficial residual effects from meditating, where I would just feel more positive and happy throughout the day. And my brain worked better. I started to feel my brain work really well for the first time in a long time. I was always sort of a normal guy, but with normal brain performance, my brain started working better. And I later then found out that when you meditate, even if it's for a week, 2 weeks or something, you start to facilitate the process of the expanding of gray matter in the prefrontal cortex of the brain. And this is like major stuff that now we know, thankfully, after years of science, that happens when you meditate. It's like you literally induce changes in the neuronal structure of your brain. So I started to just feel different, and I noticed all these things, and I wanted to kind of know the scientific explanation for it, because if you tell people, like if you try to tell somebody I meditated for 2 weeks and it changed my life, they're gonna look at you like you're crazy. But if you can sit down and explain to them that you were able to calm down the anterior cingulate cortex, an area responsible partially for reacting to stress, or the amygdala or something, in response to trying to change your attention for consistent periods of time, and that there's functional magnetic resonance imagery studies that are scientifically backed, peer-reviewed, etc., that demonstrate these changes in the brain, then people might be like, huh, that's interesting. And so me knowing how people are, and me being mostly 75% of it, me being interested in finding the answer to what the hell was going on, I went and I basically just sat in Barnes & Noble for like 6 months on my off time and read every book in the cognitive science section, every book about brain science, just like every one there was, like from there's a book called Think. The subtitle is something to the effect of a neuroscientist's prescription for better brain performance. It's by an author named Richard Restak. And then to books like The Brain That Changed Itself, which is a well-known book, I guess, in the neuroscience community, I would imagine, by a guy named Norman Doidge. And I just sat there reading these books cover to cover and realized, number one, like, wow, this is the thing I'm passionate about. Wow, like, this is cool. And secondly, the neuroscience behind meditation and the neuroscience behind brain performance is like the coolest thing in the world to me. I just like, there's not much else that's cooler to me than that stuff. So that was sort of the beginning of it. So I looked at brain performance after that point as, I looked at improving my brain from a neuroscientific perspective. That's it. I just looked at, like, how can I stave off neurodegeneration? How can I make my brain work better now? Because right around that time, like early on, I realized the difference between me and other people in terms of competitiveness or what I end up achieving in the corporate world or as an entrepreneur is my brain. I mean, it's my experience, but all that really has to do with the neurons in my brain. My experience is like, my neurons encompass all of that information. It's just all that data from the past that I have uploaded and I've changed and done stuff with in my brain. And that whether or not I was going to succeed as an entrepreneur, which was like at 25 of like making that transition, getting out of the army at 24 and being an entrepreneur and starting companies thereafter, I needed to have a better brain, to do that. So those are a couple perspectives that I think about taking nootropics from, which I hope will lend some perspective to some people that think that it might be cheating, and to reinforce why I don't think taking nootropics is cheating. We also have to think about what kind of smart drugs we're talking about. Modafinil, which is a very strong prescription smart drug. It's an anti-narcolepsy drug. And they prescribe it for sleep apnea, which is a sleep condition where you stop breathing and it messes with your sleep, so you're tired the next day. That is very different than Cortex, Gen 1, Gen 2, Alpha Brain, Siltep, right? The natural nootropics that are out there. There are a lot of compounds that provide a great nootropic effect, especially when taken in specific quantities for your brain and together, that are not drugs at all. They're nootropics. They're essentially chemical agents, some of them constituents of the human brain, that aren't classified as drugs. They're just, you get them on a plant somewhere and it gets processed and you can take it. It's like stuff that gets processed from egg yolks, or soy or something, and then you can process it into powder and take it that way. And so I think when people think about smart drugs and nootropics, they have to differentiate between things like modafinil and cortex, right? Those are two very different things. But for the sake of the argument that they're the same because they help performance, performance enhancement, they're certainly not the same because people get way worse. Like, people get side effects with more of the very strong ones and not with like the very natural ones. But for the sake of them being the same thing, for the sake of that argument, let's just continue from there. Oh yeah, so let's go a little bit into the hypervigilancy of like my post-military brain and how I use nootropics to help that. Meditation helps a lot with me, like trying to be calm and cool. But nootropics help to a different level. Nootropics allow my brain to I just have a little bit more say so. Like, I have a little more control when my brain wants to worry about things, or like just sort of freak out about something that might be potentially threatening. When it's funny because like there was a specific incident that took place in Baghdad in 2007 where a staff sergeant was killed by a precision small arms fire. And that staff sergeant was part of my platoon, trained me, we spent about a year together, like all as a platoon, and this guy before we went to Iraq, and then the dude was killed, gunned down in front of me, like in this whole ordeal that happened in right outside of Slaughter City in Baghdad, and in fact you can even read about, you can watch a video about that exact incident if you Google Josh Mantz. Joshua M-A-N-T-Z. He's the lieutenant that was in that attack with us that got hit too, injured, and lived. And then just Google that in CNN or Google that in MSNBC. And CNN and MSNBC interviewed my platoon leader about that incident. I was there that day when Staff Sergeant Marlon Harper was killed. And that incident, that if you check that out, or I'll see if I can link to it below, where the Staff Sergeant died. I was the gunner of the lieutenant's truck, and so I was like 3 feet from them as they were hit from this round. And that incident it's the root of a lot of my PTS, post-traumatic kind of stress stuff. And so when you see somebody get killed, I'm just gonna be frank with you. When you see somebody get killed and you're there, something in your brain is sort of like a continued self-preservation mechanism clicks on and doesn't turn off. Like turning it off is extremely, extremely hard. And nootropics allow me to have a little bit more control to kind of turn that constant self-preservation mode, as if somebody's trying to kill me, off a little bit. Just sort of switch it, turn it down, or tone it down a little bit, or like have a little more control of it. And that's why nootropics, that's one perspective to look at why nootropics aren't cheating, and they're extremely helpful for particular issues that a brain may have. Now on to the most controversial topic about it, which might be where people consider it cheating, which is in the corporate world, or being an executive, or being an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. I own 2 companies. I'm 31 years old. I plan to build, the companies that I own right now are $250,000 companies to $1 million+ companies. But I plan to build like $100 million, $300 million, $500 million, $1 billion companies in the future. Those are going to take 10 years to build. So my brain, like I was kind of saying in the beginning, how my brain works really is one of the major determining factors of whether or not I'm going to be able to do this as fast as I want to do it. I'm still going to do it because I'm an entrepreneur through and through, and this is a point I want to make. I started the company that we're sitting here in now, my HQ, for a company called iMobile Rescue Inc. It's an iOS device services company for the enterprise, mostly in schools. We fix iPads, they ship them in, we do damage management for their fleet of 100 iPads or 1,000 iPads. I built the foundation of this company without taking nootropics at all. Maybe like I remember like I took 30 count of Alpha Brain for like 15 days. It's like that's how many are in 30 count of Alpha Brains, two capsules per serving. In 2013, I started this company in 2011. That was 15 days, that I took Alpha Brain. And there was this whole period where I really didn't experiment too much with nootropics at all, and that was kind of in the beginning of building this company. I also built the foundation for the company, built alliances with a lot of companies, which became contracts, settled those contracts, signed the contracts. Those customers are still clients today. And I did all that just being who I am, because I'm a high-paced individual. I'm an entrepreneur. I've always wanted to achieve. I joined the Army at 19 because I wanted to go out and see the world and do crazy things. And so I just have that DNA. And I developed that DNA in my late teens and thereafter. So after I got out of the Army and started this company, it's like, I built the company and I would have done it anyway. Surrogate Labs, the company that makes Cortex, I should not use that as an example because it's probably a bad example, but say I started another company that did something completely different from nootropics. I would have still built that company and still done it. The difference between me not taking nootropics and taking nootropics, though, is in fact speed. I wouldn't have been able to build this company as fast, I don't think, and I would not have been able to build Surrogate Labs, the parent company of Cortex, as fast if I hadn't been taking nootropics on and off throughout that period, especially building Cortex. Building Cortex, I was taking nootropics every day while I was formulating the product, every day, right? And toward the end, for 3-4 months, it was exactly the Cortex formula, with the exception of a few milligram difference until I got it just right. So I was taking nootropics that were optimizing my brain. You look at uridine monophosphate and CDP choline, two of the nootropics in Cortex, right? Those aid in synaptic plasticity, and complex neuronal communication. They are the major members of, at least they combine to form cell membranes in the brain. They improve drastically a neurotransmitter system called the cholinergic system, and they help with a whole host of other conceptual things that people do with their brains, like focus and working memory. So there's no question that I was able to build that company and build that product faster because I was taking those nootropics. They were optimizing my brain. There's no question that my verbal fluency is a lot better when I take nootropics, and that allows me to have better conversations with people and potentially leads to more sales when I walk into a Fortune 500 company and sit down with like 6 of their IT people around a table, and it's like a scary situation and I have to sell them. I need to be verbally fluent and I need to be convincing, so that helps. So do I think I've had the leg up from taking nootropics and experimenting with smart drugs being an entrepreneur? Yes. Does that mean that it's cheating? No, because anybody else could do the same thing. Anybody could do the same thing. And the reason why they might want to, this will be my last point, is because I am of the opinion that if a person wants to improve their brain performance, then, and by the way, I haven't taken any nootropics for about, I think a week and a half, and prior to that, 2 weeks. I'm cycling off. Cycling off is a good thing. So if you think I'm smart right now, I haven't taken any nootropics for quite some time. This is how I am normally. I am a high energy dude, and my brain works well. But I also think taking especially Cortex makes your brain work well kind of residually, which is interesting. And a lot of other nootropics are the same way. But people have the capacity to improve their brains just like I do. And I'm of the opinion that a person is smart if they recognize the difference between them and other people in terms of performance isn't some foreign concept about how good they are at something or whatever. It specifically has to do with the functioning of their brain. That's it. And so, a person is an intelligent person at baseline if they realize, here I am at baseline, and I want to improve my brain, and that'll help me do everything else in my life, because the brain is the foundation of everything. If you want to know what's controlling your life, it's here it is right here. That's it, for the most part, and what you can do and what you're capable of, etc. And so I think a person is an intelligent person going hey, I'm here, and I would like to improve upon my brain and be here. What are people to think of people that want to improve upon their bodies, right? And they take supplements to do so. And they go to the gym to do so. It's what are we to think of those people? It's the same thing. Steroids, that's cheating. I mean, that's more along the lines of cheating, I would say. because you're really talking about like hormonal adaptation, hormonal enhancement rather, injecting direct hormones into the body and to facilitate this very visual and strength-based outcome. But like, do we look at guys that go to the gym and take a pre-workout drink like as cheating because the pre-workout has caffeine in it? Better yet, do we look at people who drink coffee, which has these things called diterpenes, which are like antioxidant to the brain or super beneficial to the brain? The caffeine also inhibits a major neurotransmitter called adenosine, which makes your brain think that you're it basically allows you to not feel tired, so you end up feeling wired, as a result of that. Do we look at that as cheating? No, because it's pervasive. It's everywhere. Go into Wawa and there's whole stations dedicated to coffee. That's it. I can't even imagine the multiple $billion industry that coffee is. But we don't look at coffee, a very well-known nootropic, as cheating. Like if people say nootropics are cheating, like I just want to start saying stop drinking coffee. Because you definitely have the cognitive edge over other people that don't drink coffee if you're drinking coffee in some areas, and it just is what it is. But I think coffee's a great thing. Caffeine is a nootropic. Caffeine's wonderful for certain things. So many famous people that have done great things attribute a lot of their success, or at least attribute a lot of their brain capacity to just drinking a lot of coffee throughout the day, just drinking lots of coffee and having lots of caffeine. So I want to finish it off by saying, like, from the perspective of somebody who thinks about neuroscience and like me being in Barnes & Noble, reading the cognitive sciences books, all of them, and understanding at that point, like, brain performance is really important. Wow, this is important. I need to try to work to improve my brain. Doing everything naturally that you can do that, like meditating and eating right and trying to sleep right. But having problems like being an Iraq combat veteran, and that changed my brain, and I've got this state of hypervigilance all the time that I don't like, and I can't relax because of it and can't control my brain because of it. Having a sleep condition that is inherited from my dad, that is a respiratory condition that makes me stop breathing in the middle of the night, and then I'm tired the next day and can't function as good as I would like to, so I want to optimize my brain from there. You have to think about, and those are true things for me, it's called sleep apnea. You have to try to think about those perspectives, and how some people like me might just be trying to get to baseline. I might just be trying to get to a place where I feel normal, and I don't have a cognitive deficit, and that's why I use nootropics, and that's been the case for me a lot of times, in a lot of individual instances. So, I'm not saying that other people's orientation on why they're taking smart drugs or why they're experimenting with nootropics are as innocuous as mine, but or as harmless or innocent or something. Because there are people out there that just want performance benefits, and that's all. And I think that's a great thing, especially when we look at, like, there's a nootropic called Alcar, acetyl L-carnitine, which over and over and over again shows it being preventative in decline of cognitive functions, throughout the period that you age. This is important. It's extremely neuroprotective too. Aniracetam, a well-known smart drug, actual smart drug, neuroprotective, doesn't harm the liver. Enzymes don't increase, and hosts of other ones that improve brain performance over time and reduce the amount of degeneration that takes place within the interconnected billions of interconnected neurons in your brain. That's important. It's important. Do we look at Ray Kurzweil? He's a futurist who takes like 230 pills a day as somebody who cheats. Some of the, like, newsflash for people who don't know, but some of the supplements that Ray Kurzweil, the futurist, takes in his 230 pill supplement regimen are nootropics. Like, he takes L-carnitine and phosphatidylcholine and other stuff those are nootropics. And so I hope that this has been just just a shift in perspective for people that think it's cheating for taking nootropics, and then more validation for people who take nootropics on why nootropics are really not any more cheating than caffeine or meditating or sleeping an extra hour or pre-workout supplements or whatever. And that it should be noted that people have ailments that might make their brain not work the way they want to, and nootropics help them to better deal with that, and that's important. So thanks a lot for watching, and talk to you next time.